Imagine getting a call from debt collectors threatening to take your children as payment. Not your house. Not your car. Your actual children. That's exactly where this widow found herself. Broke, desperate, and out of options. But what happened next defied every law of physics and economics. This is the miracle of the widow's oil. A widow came to the prophet Elisha in absolute panic. Her husband, a fellow prophet, had died, leaving her with crushing debt. In ancient Israel, if you couldn't pay, creditors could take your children as slaves to work off what you owed. She was literally days away from losing her sons. Can you imagine that terror? The sleepless nights, the helplessness of watching the clock tick down. She cried out to Elisha, "Your servant my husband is dead," and he feared the Lord. But now his creditor is coming to take my two boys as his slaves. She was at the end of her rope. No money. No resources. No plan. Just desperation and a faint hope that maybe, just maybe, God could do something. Elisha asked her a question that seemed almost cruel in its simplicity. "How can I help you? Tell me, what do you have in your house?" Her answer was heartbreaking. "Your servant has nothing there at all, except a small jar of olive oil. Nothing, except oil." The one thing that seemed too insignificant to matter. But here's what she didn't know: God specializes in using what little you have left. Elisha gave her instructions that must have sounded crazy. Go around and ask all your neighbors for empty jars. Don't ask for just a few. Get as many as you can. Then go inside. Shut the door behind you and your sons. And start pouring oil into all those jars. As each one is filled, set it aside. Think about this. She's broke, about to lose her children, and the prophet tells her to go borrow containers. How humiliating must that have been? Knocking on neighbors' doors, asking for jars when everyone knew she had nothing to put in them. But here's where faith gets tested. Would she trust God's word even when it made no sense? Would she obey even when it looked foolish? She did. She gathered every jar she could find. She brought them home, shut the door with her sons inside, and picked up her tiny jar of oil. And then she started pouring. 1 jar, 2 jars, 3 jars. The oil kept flowing. 4 jars. 5 jars. Still flowing. 10 jars. 20 jars. The oil never stopped. She kept pouring until every single jar was filled to the brim. Finally, she said to her son, "Bring me another jar." But he replied, "There are no more jars." And only then did the oil stop flowing. Read that again. The oil stopped not when God ran out, but when she ran out of containers. The miracle was limited only by her faith to prepare for it. She ran back to Elisha, probably breathless with excitement and disbelief. "What do I do now?" Elisha smiled and said, "Go, sell the oil and pay your debts. You and your sons can live on what is left." Not only did God provide enough to pay off the creditors, He gave her more. Enough to pay the debt and live on. She went from broke and desperate to debt-free with surplus. From losing everything to having abundance. God didn't just solve her problem, He exceeded her expectations. That's how God works. He doesn't just meet our needs at the bare minimum. He pours out blessings until there's no more room to receive them. The widow who had nothing at all now had everything she needed. Her children were safe. Her debt was canceled. Her future was secure. So what does this ancient miracle mean for you today? Sitting in your financial crisis, your overwhelming situation, your impossible circumstance. First, God asks, what do you have? Not what you don't have. Not what you wish you had. What do you have right now? Maybe it seems small, insignificant, not nearly enough. Bring it to God anyway. He can multiply what you give Him. Second, faith requires action. The widow had to go borrow jars. She had to shut the door. She had to start pouring. Miracles often require us to do something that looks foolish before we see God move. What is God asking you to do right now that requires faith? Third, your miracle is limited by your expectation. The oil stopped when the jars ran out, not when God's supply ran out. Are you preparing for a small miracle or a big one? Are you bringing God a thimble or a barrel? Fourth, God cares about your practical needs. This wasn't a spiritual crisis. It was bills, debt, and financial pressure. God doesn't just care about your soul. He cares about your rent, your groceries, your children's future. Bring your practical problems to Him. Finally, shut the door. The miracle happened in private, behind closed doors. Sometimes God works His greatest miracles when you stop performing for others and get alone with Him and your family. Here's my challenge. In the comments below, answer this question. What's in your house? What small thing do you have right now that God might want to multiply? Maybe it's a skill, a talent, a small amount of money, a relationship. Name it, declare it, watch God work. And if this story gave you hope that God can turn your not enough into more than enough, then subscribe to Do of the Word right now. We're sharing Bible stories that speak directly to your real-life struggles. Hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications, and share this with someone drowning in debt who needs to know that God is still in the miracle business. The God who multiplied oil can multiply whatever you give Him. Stop focusing on what you don't have. Start offering what you do have. Thanks for watching. God bless you, and remember, bring your jars. God's ready to pour.